August to discover what or who was behind one cryptic entry. And that was how the Earl found Pen once more and learned he had a daughter. Freddie barked his agreement, though, being a dog, he likely didn't fully understand how much Jo had come to rely on the Duke. The man was an excellent source of common, and not-so-common, sense. And he was a father himself, so he understood children's needs. She'd been corresponding with him since shortly after Pen married. Once Caro left her too, she'd become even more dependent on his advice. She had no one else to consult. Well, no one I trust. A squirrel dashed across their path at that moment. Freddie gave a delighted and perhaps relieved bark and bounded after it. For one mad moment, Jo wished she could forget her worries so easily and hie off across a field, a figurative field, chasing any new thing that caught her fancy, that she could escape. Escape? She blinked, staring at Freddie but no longer seeing him. People escape from traps. I don't feel trapped, do I? No, of course she didn't. The home, the benevolent home for the maintenance and support of spinsters, widows, and abandoned women and their unfortunate children, wasn't a trap. On the contrary, it had freed her. It had given her a purpose when she'd most needed one. When Freddie, her husband Freddie, the handsome, charming, irresponsible rogue she'd married when she'd been hardly more than a girl, had lost everything on the turn of a card, put a pistol to his head, and made her a widow, she'd been not shocked. Freddie had lived recklessly. She'd half expected him to come to such an end. Nor sad, really, beyond the feeling of regret anyone would have for a life ended too soon. No, the emotion she most remembered feeling was dread, a horrible, paralysing, sinking fear that she'd be sent home, back to her father's house and her father's control. I didn't stay paralysed for long. No. Within minutes she'd stiffened her spine and vowed she'd not submit to a man, any man, ever again. She was still a bit in awe of how she'd gathered her courage and asked the old Duke of Grainger, the man who'd won the game Freddie had lost, to let her come here to little Puddledon. And then, once her mourning period was over, she'd persuaded him to let her turn Puddledon Manor into the home, a place where women could live their lives free of male interference. She took a deep breath and then blew it out slowly. I managed then, when I was young and on my own for the first time. I can manage now. The squirrel had scampered up a tree and out onto a branch high above Freddie's head. Now it shattered down at him while the dog jumped and spun below, barking wildly. Give up, Freddie. You don't want that squirrel. What would you do with it if you caught it? Freddie stopped, looked at her, and then looked back at the furry rodent. He must have concluded she had the right of it because he gave one last bark, lifted his leg to water the tree, and trotted back to her. I do sometimes wish I could just piss on my problems and walk away, though. Jo frowned. No, of course I don't. What is the matter with me? She shook her head. It was past time to stop this foolish fretting and get back to her office. She needed to go over the books once more, looking for yet another way, or several ways to economise. Economising isn't going to solve your biggest problem. She sighed. All right, yes, it wasn't pounds and pence that kept her awake at night. To be honest, Freddie, it's... Something moved in the bushes, and Freddie darted off again to investigate. Jo heaved another sigh and adjusted her bonnet. Perhaps it was just as well she'd been interrupted. She'd not broached this subject with Freddie before, but it had been getting harder and harder to keep her tongue between her teeth. When Caro had written to say she was marrying Viscount Oakland, she'd not sent the letter via the post. No, she'd had it delivered by the 3 London lightskirts she'd met at the Viscount's estate, and who, she wrote, now wished to live at the home. There was the problem. Oh, the light-skirt part was fine. Many of the home's residents had been in that trade, and while Fanny and Polly didn't have any experience in what was needed here, agriculture and brewing, they were learning. Livy, however... Lud! It was Livy, Olivia Williams, who really bedevilled Jo. Well, threatened might be a better word. Which was silly. In many ways, Livy understood Jo's concerns as...